And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Big Blue in the Bronx YouTube channel, where in just 2 days, the New York Yankees will play. Well, it's actually under 2 days. The New York Yankees will play against the Milwaukee Brewers to open the 2025 season. With that said, we have a lot to cover, a lot of good stuff coming through. Got a loaded panel tonight. We got Dylan Backer coming back, and we got NFV joining us for the first time. And of course, Luca as well. So, for first thoughts, before we get into any subject topics, I want to throw it around. I'll start with NFV because it's the first time he's been on the channel.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I was happy when you reached out to me to have me on the show. So I was like, cool. I would love to get on with you boys. So you guys do a good job. You and Luca. Dylan, nice to meet you, man. It's my first time meeting you. So
you too,
pleasure
man.
meeting you guys. Personally, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm looking forward to the baseball season. So here we go.
Yeah. Just under 2 days away. Dylan, what's up, man?
What's going on, man? Now, before I do start, it is raining outside, and I just heard really bad thunder. So if you hear that, I do apologize in advance. But anyways, to move on towards the Yankee season, I actually was at the game today against the Marlins. I know a lot of people did not get to see that game because it wasn't televised. But my first really thoughts on it is that Cody Bellinger this spring was just phenomenal. Now, I will say that first and foremost. He was one of the guys that we got in the offseason, of course. He was phenomenal in spring, kind of from start to finish. I try not to look at spring training numbers a whole lot just because, we know a guy can go off in spring against the minor league pitchers and then not do the same thing in the regular season. But Bellinger was hot from start to finish. Like I said, I was really encouraged by what I saw, not even just from him. Guys like Paul Goldschmidt was also very good in spring. Aaron Judge struggled in spring, but I'm going to overlook that a little bit because it's just spring training. I'll chalk it up as that. I'm not too worried about him. But I think my biggest concern coming into this season is the pitching staff. I think that's the biggest concern, and it was initially something that was going to be a strength. You would have had Garrett Cole and Max Fried at the top. Now you don't have Garrett Cole at all this year. You're not going to have Luis Heel for at least 3 months. Clark Schmidt's not going to start the year on time either. You got some bullpen guys that are still working their way back from injury. It's going to be a little tough with the pitching staff this year. I think they need to at some point make an addition. I don't know what they're going to do about that. I was hoping that maybe they would have responded quickly from the Cole injury with a move, but I'm also greedy and want to see them make moves. So at the same time, I don't want them to just make a move for the sake of making a move. I want them to make the right move. So I'll be patient on it for now, but that's my biggest concern coming into the year. I think the offense can figure itself out as long as Aaron Judge stays healthy because Stanton's already injured, so that's a big loss right there. But as long as Judge stays healthy, I think the offense can, be good. I don't think it'll be as good as last year because you lost Juan Soto in the offseason, but I think it can still be a very, like a top 3 offense in the American League even. I do think it's capable of being that. But I think the pitching is going to be a big concern. And like I said, it seemed like that was going to be a really big strength. It seemed like they were going to be able to stop a lot of runs, but I really don't know what to say about this pitching staff at the moment because I really don't know what to expect. I really don't. So that's kind of what I got to say to start it off. So yeah.
All fair points. Luca, your first thoughts.
First thoughts, what's up to Dylan? I haven't spoken to him on stream in a while. And what's up to NFE? Thank you for joining us. And thank you to the chat as well for joining us on this Tuesday night. Contrary to what I'm hearing with Dylan and NFE, first of all, I'm excited to talk about the Yankees overall, but I am not going to lie to you all. I'm certainly the most pessimistic that I've been on the Yankees in probably my lifetime. Coming off the World Series, there's just not a lot of things that I like about how the organization handles themselves. We can explain it to depths, but overall, I'm not overly happy about how the Yankees have, been overall. And I apologize if I'm just stumbling over my words, but I'm not exactly super hyped this season, especially coming off the World Series and what that was. That was kind of scarring, to say the least. I know some other people we know can't forgive the Yankees for such, Alex, right?
Yeah. But listen, it's going to be a variation of takes. Everyone's going to have different opinions, which obviously, if we agreed on everything, would probably be a pretty boring show. So I'm going to start off. I'll start with Luca on this one, and then I'll bounce my way around the table again. Dylan mentioned it. The New York Yankees lost Juan Soto to the New York Mets this offseason. Of course, there's always the fan side of it of, oh, fuck Juan Soto, or Juan Soto deserves it or whatever. But looking at it objectively, how big of a loss is Juan Soto going to be for this lineup? Especially considering the fact, which is something that is a much bigger picture thing we'll talk about later, Giancarlo Stanton, for the foreseeable future, will not be in the lineup. How big is the Juan Soto loss? Again, I'll start with Luca, and then I'll make my way around the table.
Juan Soto is a generational player. We all know that. Obviously, earned his contract with the Mets. In my opinion, I think Juan Soto and Giancarlo Stanton were the two major pieces that carried the Yankees to the World Series, and now the Yankees have neither. It's a big loss for Stanton. Obviously, he hasn't been healthy in the regular season, Soto. But I wasn't too much a fan of how the Yankees, it was more so about, okay, we lost Juan Soto. What are we going to do to replace him? Bellinger, I like the move. Goldschmidt, I'm not as high. What I would prefer the Yankees to do was, okay, you trade for Cody Bellinger, you have him play first base. Let's go sign, and this is obviously, hypothetical, and also has to deal with Mr. Steinbrenner's budget, Mr. Hal. That's another thing. I would have signed Teoscar Hernandez to play left field, Dominguez in center, and then I would have had Yandy Diaz at third. That's just my ideal offseason. But I don't think my biggest problem with the Yankees right now, they have a lot of power hitters, and that's good enough. But some of these guys you might not know what they are. And also as well, I don't think we have a true leadoff hitter in the lineup. And I get Austin Wells was hitting power in the spring. And listen, good for him. I really like Austin Wells as a prospect, especially on offense and defense. I think he's made some strides. But in terms of a table setter, I don't think we really have that at the starting lineup. So I still think the Yankees lack some balance in the power to contact aspect. And I know that's going to seem a little outdated. And I'm just more of the fan of original thought. But the one thing I do admire is at least they have somewhat of a balance between lefty-righty hitters.
Okay, all right. Dylan, your thoughts on the Soto loss and how it would impact this lineup?
Yeah, I'll put it this way. It's as simple as this too. You can't replace Juan Soto. You can't. I mean, it sounds like a lot like I'm speaking so highly on Soto, but he was that good last season. He took the Yankees lineup to a whole different level last season. There's a reason why they were able to make the World Series. It's Aaron Judge for once in a while had lineup protection. It feels like he never has that. And that's why he and Soto were able to be so good together. I mean, we saw throughout most of last season, even when guys were just pitching around Judge, you still had to deal with Soto, and Soto was having an MVP season himself. So it wasn't like you could just pitch around both those guys because you really couldn't do that. Now Judge's lineup protection is not the same this year. I'm not saying that it's like bad because I want to see the product play out first before I reach that conclusion, but it's definitely like a bit of a downgrade a little bit. It is. You go from Juan Soto to Cody Bellinger, and that's not even me trying to knock on Cody Bellinger, but it's not Juan Soto. He's a little bit past that MVP form that Bellinger was back in 2019. Same thing with Paul Goldschmidt. He's past his 2023 or 22 MVP form, whichever year it was that he got that MVP. He's past that. Both those guys are past that. So the lineup protection is not the same. And that's something that really concerns me because, I wonder how that's going to affect Judge's season. I really do. I'm not saying that I'm expecting Judge to hit 60 home runs again. No, but we know what the guy's capable of. He's shown time and time again that, he can reach like Bonds level numbers. I don't think he's going to come close to that this year, though. I don't. And the reason I don't is because the lineup protection is just not the same. You're going to be seeing pitchers pitch around Judge a lot more. They're not going to be really wanting to attack him nearly as much. And that's rightfully so. The lineup around him needs to prove to be, a force to be reckoned with before Judge is going to start seeing pitches to hit. And they could easily do that because, like Luca said, they have a lot of power hitters. They have guys that are going to hit the ball out of the ballpark, guys that hit the ball hard. That's great. But they need to actually consistently do it because once they start to struggle, and if everyone struggles at the same time, the slab's not going to do anything. They're not. And I'm not trying to be like super pessimistic about this team because I do want to see this team succeed. I do think this team is still a very good team, but I have a lot of concerns about it. And I think injuries are playing a huge part in that. But even aside from the injuries, even if you still had Stanton and Cole right now, I would still have these exact same concerns because you just don't know what that lineup is going to do. I feel like there's too many unknowns in the lineup, and that's kind of my problem Because like Austin Wells, he was great in spring training, but who knows if that's going to translate to the regular season? Who knows if Cody Bellinger's hot spring will also translate? Who knows if Bellinger and Goldschmidt both will kind of play at least to an all-star level? Who knows what Jazz Chisholm's going to give you? Who knows what Jason Dominguez is going to give you? Ben Rice. I could go on and on with the entire lineup, basically full of guys that you really don't know what you're going to get out of them. I know a lot of these guys are established players, but still, you don't know if they're going to give you an all-star type of season or if they're going to give you a down year. And if they give you down seasons, they're not going to do much. They're not going to score a lot of runs, and they're not going to win as many games as they did last season. The pitching staff could figure it out, but with all the injuries to the pitching staff, that worries me too. I think the bullpen is going to be great. I think the bullpen is locked down, but the starters we have a major concern about because of all the injuries, and the lineup is full of question marks. Obviously, though, to flip it on a positive side, they could easily perform, to the back of their baseball cards and play really good, and they can end up winning a lot of games. We could see resurgences from guys like Bellinger and Goldschmidt and Chisholm and, on and on with that lineup. But it's also very volatile. They could easily just be the other way and just not be as good. I really think there's just too many unknowns with the team right now, and I don't like that. One of the things I really don't like is the unknown. So I really don't know what else to point out with this Yankee season coming up, but to bring it back to Juan Soto, losing him is massive. I mean, you can't really overstate it, especially losing him to the crosstown rival. That's massive. You're really not going to be able to let that go, really, ever. It's going to be something that'll stick with the organization for a very long time. You kind of just got to deal with it now, though, and just try to prove that you can be better than the Mets. Prove that you don't need Juan Soto. That's really all I can say about it, though. I do want to pass it off to NFE and not take up all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just real quickly before NFE, for John the Beagle Dad, this is the first live stream for the Yankees that we're doing since the World Series. So we have not gotten a chance to talk about Juan Soto and his impact on the lineup, because whether we like it or not, his impact on the departure side, however you feel about it, will be impacting the lineup. Nonetheless, let me give NFE the floor on his thoughts on the Juan Soto departure and how it's going to impact this lineup this year.
Look, did it suck to lose Juan Soto? Yes. He was a big part of that. He was a big part of that lineup. He made his decision. He decided he wanted to go sign with the New York Mets. It was all about the money at the end of the day. It's not like the Yankees just didn't make an effort. The Yankees made him a $760 million offer. So it's not, for all those folks that were saying that, oh, Hal's not going to spend. Hal was going to, tit for tat with Steve Cohen. But, with the incentives and everything, and when it's all said and done, Soto's contract is going to be $810 million. So here's the question, though. Like, okay, let's say you bring Soto back, right? And there's other areas where they needed to absolutely improve. The rotation was one of them. Because if they went with the rotation before they added Max Fried, right? We know they were talking with Max Fried. But if they were going with the same rotation of, let's just assume Cole wasn't hurt, Hill wasn't hurt, and you still had Nestor, you still had Stroman, you had Clark Schmidt, would you have felt comfortable with that rotation going into the 2025 season? I certainly wasn't going to be. So if they had all that money tied up with Soto, it would have been great to have him back. But would they have been able to make other additions to their starting pitching? Would they have been able to afford Max Fried? I don't know. But they pivoted really quickly after that Soto signing. That I have to give the Yankees credit to. That lit a fire under Hal, and I have stated that many times. That lit a fire under Hal Steinbrenner, because immediately he signed Max Fried. That was a big upgrade to the rotation. It gave me more confidence with the rotation prior to the injuries. But now with the rotation, it's a little bit of a concern. As far as the lineup goes, though, they did trade for Cody Bellinger. Is he Juan Soto? No. But I feel like with him and Judge, I feel like they could be a good, back-to-back. I feel like they can bring that kind of production. It's not Juan Soto. I get that. But I feel like Bellinger can be that guy that can support Judge. Paul Goldschmidt, I understand. He's past his prime now. The guy's 37 years old, but I'll take Paul Goldschmidt. Why am I taking Paul Goldschmidt? Because it's only for 1 year, so it's not like they have like a long-term commitment with him. It's for 1 year. They got him on a steal for $12.5 million. Defensively, he's an upgrade over Anthony Rizzo. a big upgrade. They haven't really, because first base really was what did they have? You either had Rizzo or you had DJ or you had Ben Rice. Take your pick. The other thing about Goldschmidt, he hits lefties well. That was something that the Yankees absolutely struggled last year with hitting lefties. Last year, Paul Goldschmidt, he hit close to 300 against lefties. I don't have the OPS and the slugging off the top of my head, but when you look at the stats, he hit well against lefties, something that the Yankees really struggled against. As far as the lineup goes, it looks great during spring training, but it's spring training. I know spring training games don't count. I understand. I get that. However, if these guys are playing the way they are, how they're playing in spring training could translate into the regular season, I think this lineup is going to be fine. This lineup has to be better with situational hitting. That was something that they truly struggled. And I feel like this spring training, we saw that with runners in scoring position, they were getting timely hits. They were getting hits that mattered. They weren't totally relying on the home run ball. So, that's also, to me, that's also important too. Also defensively, they have gotten better too. Defense was atrocious last season with the Yankees. So as far as I'm concerned, like, are there concerns for me this season? Absolutely. Yeah. There's, this is a completely different lineup. This is a little bit of a different team, but I still feel good. My biggest area of concern, honestly, would be at this point, as of right now, is a starting rotation.
Okay, all right. We got about 2 more prompts to go before we hit some stuff that's been going on during spring training, some general questions. So, and this, we could kind of group this a little bit, is how would you grade Cashman's handling of the third base position, and how would you assess his offseason overall? And I know obviously we've gone into some detail, getting Goldschmidt, getting in Max Fried, getting Cody Bellinger. Obviously, he did leave out the third base position, but I'll start with that. Group 2 things in one. I'll start with NFE, and then I'll make my way around the table again.
Okay, so you're asking Cashman's grade, offseason grade?
Cashman's grade on the offseason, how you felt, and also his handling of the third base position, because it's still, Cabrera's there, but it's, you could have done better, in my opinion, at least.
Right. Yeah. Look, as far as how Cashman pivoted, again, with Cashman and how they pivoted quick, and I like the moves that they made. If I have to give him a grade, I'll give anywhere from, I'll say, a B to an A minus. But if I'm being honest, I'll give him a B. Third base, I wish they had addressed. They didn't address, but then again, what options were out there? There wasn't really a whole lot of options. Some teams were not willing to move players. I'm sure they have talked with other teams about acquiring players, but maybe what the asking price was a little high, because we all know, the Yankees tax is real, as much as some people may not believe that. There was that chatter about Nolan Arenado, but the Cardinals didn't want to eat some of that contract, and I can't blame the Yankees for not pursuing. And if you look at Arenado's numbers during spring training, again, I know it's spring training, hasn't looked great. He hasn't looked great in this spring. Third base, yeah, as far as acquiring a player, yeah, he could have maybe he could have signed Alex Bregman, but the thing is, I know a lot of Yankees fans wanted him, but is Alex Bregman worth as much as Aaron Judge? That's the question I want to ask. And if you tell me yes, cool, like, that's your opinion, but I beg to differ. Aaron Judge, Bregman getting the same amount of money, to me, it just doesn't sit well with me. But yeah, they could have maybe gotten Bregman, but I'm not for $40 million. There's no way I would have signed Bregman for $40 million. But again, their options for third base, in the market, there wasn't really, when you think about it, there wasn't a lot in the market. There might have been some guys that may have been available, but maybe what they were asking for, the Yankees were just like, yeah, let's just sit and wait. But it was kind of that one was a tough one, because they had options. They had options in house, but I wasn't really the most excited. But what was out there, that's the big question. So there was talks of Arenado, there was talks of Bregman, but I don't think where either one of them are going to move the. I mean, Bregman probably would have moved the needle for sure, but I just wasn't going to pay him that amount of money. There was just no way I was going to do that.
Absolutely. Dylan, your thoughts on the Cashman's offseason and also the handling of third base?
Right. So the offseason overall, I don't think it was bad. I mean, he did get freed. You got like essentially the second best starting pitcher available on the market, Corbin Burns being the best one, but I didn't expect to get Corbin Burns. I will gladly take Max Fried. You got Cody Bellinger, of course, Paul Goldschmidt. I know a lot of fans felt like they were kind of just settling on those. And while I kind of see why they say that, I mean, at the same time, at least you were able to get more than one option instead of just like getting one of them and then getting nothing. But third base, I wasn't really pleased with how third base was addressed. I'm going to be honest with that because, the way I see it and the fact that Cabrera is the starting third baseman, to me, that tells me that they really did not know what to do about third base. And then they kind of just waited all spring training to hope something would come up and nothing did. So now they're kind of just settling for Cabrera at third. And I really am not a fan of that because, when you just lose the World Series, you just made it all the way there and you lose, you should go all in. I mean, you really should. You're the New York Yankees, for crying out loud. This isn't like the Cleveland Guardians or something like that. You have money. Spend money. You know what I mean? I understand, you're not throwing $40 million at Alex Bregman or taking on Nolan Arenado's contract. I'm okay with that. I understand those are players that are obviously very volatile. They can, not give you nearly as much production as that contract weighs. I totally understand that. But to me, I feel like that they didn't really try hard enough to see what other options were available at third base. I feel like they kind of just waited and hoped that something would fall in their lap instead of actually being aggressive and pursuing something. And the reason I think that is because of the fact that Cabrera is starting. I mean, it seemed like their plan became DJ and Cabrera at third base, which to me is not really acceptable because third base was, a gaping hole last season. You had to throw Jazz Chisholm there. Now Jazz Chisholm is able to go back to second base, but only because we don't have other third basemen on the roster, so you got to put Cabrera there and DJ there. And I know a lot of fans like Cabrera. I know they think he can be really good as a utility guy. Me personally, I don't think Cabrera is an everyday player. I think he is more suited as a utility guy. I think he's great with the versatility and all that stuff, but I don't think his bat is good enough to be in the lineup every single day. I just never thought it was to begin with. I never really saw it with him. I know he can easily make improvements and become a solid hitter, but I just wasn't really a fan of it. At the end of the day, I can't exactly like blame Cashman for, the options not being the most desirable at third base. I understand it wasn't like, a loaded third baseman market. I feel like they could have tried for Alex Bregman a little harder, though. It felt like all offseason they never really had their eyes set on him, which to me didn't make a lot of sense. Like, I understand not giving him $40 million, but the fact that they didn't really try to go after Alex Bregman and see if they could get something lower or not, to me, that is a little confusing. I feel like they could have definitely went a little more after him, just a little bit, just to kind of gauge his price a little bit, because now he's with the Red Sox. He's with your AL East rival. Now the Red Sox can easily compete with the Yankees for the division title. I would even argue that the Red Sox are almost right there with them again. I really would. The Red Sox made a lot of good moves in the offseason. I think the Yankees are still a better team, but I don't think the Red Sox are a pushover anymore. I think, with the moves that they made in the offseason and stuff, they're right there with us at the moment. When you look at the rest of the American League, I know a lot of American League teams did not make a whole ton of big splash moves. The Orioles, for example, had an extremely disappointing offseason, in my opinion. Same thing with like the Toronto Blue Jays. Those teams were disappointing this offseason. There was a lot of AL teams that really could have made some big additions that did not do that. So the Yankees are still right there. They're, arguably even the best team in the American League, if you want to call it that. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. But still, I think the goal now is to be better than the Dodgers, best team in baseball type thing. I think that's the goal now. I think you've kind of established that you are the best team or one of the best teams in the American League, and you can get to the World Series. You showed that last season. I know you had Juan Soto on the team, but you still showed it. But now I feel like that if the Yankees, let's say they made it back to the World Series and they play the Dodgers, the two teams really don't compare. The Dodgers are miles better in terms of talent and just overall production they give. They're miles better than them. And I think that's kind of an issue. I think really when you have Aaron Judge at his advanced age that he is at, because he's not young. The guy is in his 30s. When he's at that age, same thing with like Garrett Cole, and now you just lost Garrett Cole for a year. When you have these guys in their prime, but they're kind of at the wrong side of the age, if you will, that you don't want these guys to continue to age and then lose their prime. I feel like you got to build the best team you could possibly build while you have the luxury of having these guys on your team. I feel like the Yankees, in a way, are kind of settling a little bit. And I don't think, at the end of the day, I think they're still being competitive, but I don't think that they're better than the Dodgers. I don't think you can even argue there are other teams out there that are better than the Yankees. So I think that's a bit of an issue. I think if you're the Yankees this offseason, your goal should have been, let's be the best team in baseball. We just lost the World Series. We are pissed. We need to be the best team in baseball. And I don't think they did that. I don't. Obviously, the product needs to play out on the field before we can really say, oh, this team sucks, or oh, this team is not nearly as good. But on paper, I think we can all agree that it's a little bit of a worse roster. So we just need to see how it pans out. I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope that it goes well. But I have all my concerns that I laid out in my first points. So yeah, that's really all I got to say about that with Cashman. I don't think it was a bad offseason, but I wouldn't give it a perfect offseason just because I feel like they were missing just a couple of different areas. I really do.
Luca.
I think Dylan pretty much took the words right out of my mouth when he was talking about losing the World Series, not going all in. That's part of my frustration with the Yankees, but it's weird because the Yankees haven't trusted Oswald Peraza enough to play shortstop. Obviously, you go back to 2023, Volpe was the golden child, still remains the Yankees' golden child to play shortstop, and Peraza has been pretty much been spending the past 2 years in AAA. And the Yankees, I'll also mention another 2023 bit, they didn't trade Peraza at the deadline when his value was probably at its highest. And right now his value is at its lowest. So it's either you have to force start him at third base, in which he's a complete unknown for the most part, or you have to trade him for low value. Now, I don't think the Yankees are going to trade Oswald Peraza, but another thing you could have done, and this was just an idea that was thrown around. I'm not saying it was the ideal solution, but it was an alternative absolutely, is the Yankees would have keep Jazz Chisholm at third and trade for Luis Arias. That was just an idea that was put out in the offseason. The Yankees didn't even try that. Like there were some murmurs out there about Arias. There were some murmurs in December about Bregman, but nothing materialized. It's just the Yankees didn't go all in on the quarter position. Dylan brought up the great point about the Yankees lacking a true third baseman. Was DJ LeMahieu really the prize to play third base? I forget how old is he now? Forgive me, but this dude's been either very poorly offensively or he's not healthy at all. He hasn't been the same since about 3-4 years ago. So it's silly to assume that he'll be at some normal form where he could play every day at third base, let alone. It just doesn't. The third base thing did not make sense to me at all. That's what I got to say. And it was just poor handling. And about Cashman's offseason, I don't think it was all bad, although I'm pessimistic. The Bellinger move was good. Another move you guys, I think, forgot to mention, Devin Williams was a great move. Best closer in all of baseball, as opposed to having Clay Holmes blowing 13 saves a year. Great move there. You trade Nestor. But a part of me also...
Definitely forgot to mention that one. Fernando Cruz, too.
Yeah, that's another good move as well. But it's kind of a 2-2 thing. I think Halp limited himself with his luxury tax nonsense to prevent him from getting from Arenado, because the Yankees, they have two bad contracts on their salary list right now. You obviously got Marcus Stroman, who didn't pitch in the playoffs last year, had a poor second half, which was also documented in his 2023 season with the Cubs. So you have that. And you have DJ LeMahieu being a bad contract. And the Yankees still have not DFA'd DJ LeMahieu for whatever reason. Obviously, he's hurt now, so you really can't do that. But it's the Yankees hamstringing themselves. It's not like, baseball. This is not the NBA with the salary apron. It's nothing like that. The Yankees are putting that, kind of hard cap on themselves, which I don't understand. You just lost. You just got humiliated by the Dodgers. Don't you want to be with the best of them? Look what the Dodgers are doing. They're spending money all over the place, and their team is the best, and they have a dynasty for years to come. Why can't the Yankees do that? You have all the money in the world. You play in the biggest sports market in the world. Why not go all in? I'm not saying spend money to the heavens. I'm basically saying spend, fill your needs, and, don't half-ass it. Don't take half measures is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think my opinion, as far as the third base position, I will say, I don't think the Cashman had a terrible offseason. I think they could have tried to do something a little bit more. I know Hal was bringing up the tax and stuff like that and all those other different things. I think they saw Cabrera as the safe option, to be personally honest, I don't know what they would have done had DJ LeMahieu been healthy. I'd like to think he would have been on the bench. There was supposedly rumors that last year that DJ LeMahieu was going to get DFA'd, but Aaron Judge stopped that because of his friendship with him and also the Verdugo thing. But Cabrera, I guess I'm in the same opinion as Dylan. Like, I think Cabrera is a utility player. I don't think he's the third baseman. So they will eventually need to look for a third baseman. And Peraza is good defensively, but he can't hit. And the Yankees really haven't given him consistent time at the MLB level. I'm going to move on to a different subject topic, and that is how obviously we know that Anthony Volpe, he's getting better as a hitter. He had a very good spring, at least to my knowledge. And Jason Dominguez is also there. There's obviously some bright sights for him. But the problem that I have with Dominguez and Volpe is the very much unknowns defensively. Now, obviously, they signed Paul Goldschmidt. He's very much an upgrade. Then if he put it over Anthony Rizzo, I think, hell, all four of us at first base would probably be a defensive upgrade over Anthony Rizzo. But Dominguez, who's gotten limited time in the bigs, he's had some very, very bad errors in the outfield. And Volpe's, I think, as I said, I think Volpe is overrated by a lot of Yankee fans. I think his bat could definitely get better, but his defense is very much overrated. I don't think he's like this piss poor defender. I think he's just overrated as a defender. So I'll start with Luca. How much of worries do you have in terms of the defensive struggles from those two particularly young players?
We saw flashes, I believe, last year that Dominguez was not a left fielder. He was more of a center fielder, and that's why I was more in favor of signing Teoscar Hernandez. Can it get better, though? Absolutely. That comes with time. Anthony Volpe, just overall as a player, not just offensively or defensively, it's going to sound crazy, but I think we should really start seeing him breaking out this season in terms of, at least playing near to an all-star level. It's going to sound crazy. He's young and all this, that, and the third, but the Yankees hold him to a pretty high standard. And a lot of Yankee fans do as well. And as you were saying, Alex, Volpe's not the greatest shortstop defensively. I think his arm is okay. I think the glove could absolutely get better. But just in terms of Volpe overall, I think it almost sounds like a make or break here because the Yankees have held him such to a high standard and all of that in the third. I don't want to repeat myself, but I think this is Volpe's time to basically rain or shine.
Okay. All right. Dylan, your thoughts?
Yeah, to your point about Volpe, he's definitely overrated. I've always been saying this, I don't think that he's anything crazy. I never thought he was. People were hyping him up as like a good, 30-30 potential guy, and while I do think he maybe has the capability to possibly do that one day, I don't see it happening. I don't. I think the problem that really stung me last year was the fact that he sacrificed power for more contact, and it ended up resulting in really not much improved results. He still ended up only hitting like 240, and he hit less home runs too. So really, did he become that much better of a hitter? No, not really at all. He started the season off really hot. I thought maybe he was going to actually become a very solid piece in the lineup, but he completely fell apart after April, and he ended up being a very below average hitter for most of the season. So really, I really want him to be good. I think he's kind of an X factor to this team. Out of all the guys that we have this season, when you look at guys like Wells, you look at guys like Dominguez, we want these guys to be good, right? But the guy that I think needs to be good the most is Volpe. I think he is someone who, this is the year you have to show me something. You got to really show me that you can be a consistent part of the lineup. You can be someone that can, really lift this team. I think he's a big difference maker. I really do, especially because he's been very durable for the 2 seasons he's been in the big leagues. He hasn't gotten hurt. He's been very durable. He's always been available. I'm pretty sure he played almost every single game last season, if not every single game. So really, I think if he's the guy that we are hoping he'll be, which is, the kind of guy with some power and some speed and athleticism and good quality of contact that we're hoping he can be, then this team can be a lot better than what I've been projecting this stream. They really can. I think he's the big difference maker, but he has to show me something this year. He really does. When you're the New York Yankees, you're taking on big shoes as a shortstop because of obviously Derek Jeter being there for 20 years, all that time. I know that everyone's given him and Derek Jeter the kind of comparisons, which I never understood. Volpe is nothing like Jeter. I don't understand the comparisons. I think that's putting on a little bit of extra pressure on the kid when you really don't need to be doing that. But at the same time, you're playing it for the New York Yankees. You're held to a high standard. The fans will make sure that you are being heard. The fans will make sure that they know how you're playing. They will make sure they will see. They will respond in a way that however you play, they're gonna respond. They're gonna make sure that they make their presence felt, right? So when Volpe is out there and he's doing the strikeouts and the rollovers and the groundouts and the fans are giving him crap, yeah, it's reasonable. I mean, I don't care if he's only 22, 23 years old. You got to play good. You're on the New York Yankees. We want you to be good. We need this team to be good. We hold you to a very high standard. At the same time, I understand he's young. He's trying to still develop. But again, we're about to enter year 3 for Volpe. Show me something. Show me that you can be a consistent bat. And my opinion about Volpe will change. It will. I really think he has the potential to be a great player. But so far, I haven't really seen much other than just a league average or below average hitter at best. It's kind of just like a little disappointing a little bit. I know the guy wasn't like a first overall pick, but he was picked in the first round and he was touted as a very high prospect. So I'm expecting a lot more from him, and I'm hoping that this year he really shows me some glimpses of being a very capable player. That's what I got to say about Volpe, though. I really wanted to touch on that because Volpe has been someone I've had conversations about with all my other buddies for a very long time. People have been saying, oh, play Peraza over him, this, that. I was never big on Peraza. I'm honestly glad they have not done that. I never really saw the vision with him. I don't really need to do a deep dive into that just because, I never saw it with Peraza. I never thought he was anything crazy. I like his defense, but that's kind of it. His bat has shown me nothing in the times he's been in the big leagues, so I have no reason to believe that'll change. Volpe is the guy. Volpe needs to be the one who really shows me something this season. Otherwise, they're going to have a bigger problem on their hands. But hopefully we don't have that. That's all I got to say, though.
And if your thoughts on Volpe, his defensive struggles that he has had, is he overrated? And then I'll let you digest that, and then we can go into Dominguez.
So here's what I have to say about any young players, whether it's Anthony Volpe, whether it's Jason Dominguez, or any of the young guys that are coming up through the Yankees system. When these guys come up to the major league level, manage your expectations. This is the biggest frustration that I have with a lot of fans. Yankees fans, we all know we're not the most patient sometimes, but we have to manage our expectations with these young players. When Volpe came up and they were comparing him to Jeter, I'm like, let's pump the brakes right now. Like, let's wait. Let's see what he's about first. I don't know this guy. Yeah, he's been highly touted. He's been talked about by the organization, but I got to see this guy play. Defensively, is he like the worst defender? No. Is he the best? No. He does fine defensively. He does fine. His bat is the major concern for me. Offensively, he has to get it going. Year 3, and I've been saying it, it's a make or break year for Volpe. And I hope and I pray and I hope to God that this guy has a break. He has a breakout season, year 3. And we finally see the Volpe that we have all been waiting for or expecting. I think if year 3 is another down year for him, especially offensively, they need to go a different direction. And there are players in the farm that are hungry right now, right? We know those names. We hear about these names. These guys are hungry. They're ready. So, Volpe's got to get it going. If it's not in the farm, they might have to look out in the market. Whether it's through a trade or free agency, I don't know. I don't know what direction the Yankees are going to go. But Volpe needs a big year, especially with the bat. Again, when it comes to these young guys, you got to manage those expectations. You can't expect these guys to come out swinging out the gate, right? But Volpe was given a long leash. I think he's been given plenty of chances, and like Dylan said, you know what? Credit to him. He's healthy. He hardly ever misses a game. I think last season he sat out maybe 2 games or something, but He played almost every single game. So I'll give him credit there. But year 3 needs to be the breakout for him. And then with Dominguez, again, I'm managing my expectations. There's a lot of pressure on this guy. There is a lot of pressure on Dominguez. They are expecting him to be this massive superstar. Again, I don't know. We have to see what he's going to do in a full season. We've only seen very small sample sizes of Jason Dominguez. We don't know what he's going to do in a full season. This is going to be his first full season. This is his rookie season. Let's see what he does. Are there some concerns about him playing in the outfield? Sure, absolutely. I hope those things go away. Is he going to make mistakes? He's going to make mistakes. Is he going to be making? Will he make some boneheaded plays? Yeah, he might. Is he going to be? At his plate appearances, is he going to be striking out? I mean, is he going to be making? Absolutely, he's going to. But these young guys that are coming up, these rookies that are coming up, these prospects that are coming up, they're not gonna be Superman right out the gate. You have to let them make those mistakes, and they have to learn. You got to be patient with these prospects. And this season we're gonna see a few of these guys, a few of the guys from the Yankees farm playing. So fans are getting what they're asking for, because there's fans out there that kept complaining about Yankees never play their prospects. They never play their prospects. They keep trading them away, or they don't utilize them. They ruin them. Well, here's an opportunity. So, let's see what happens, right? But Dominguez, again, it's his first full year as a rookie. Let's see what he does. But Volpe, we need this guy to break out.
Absolutely. A little bit of different expectations for both players. And let's dig into probably one of the bigger holes on this team that has been ravaged by injuries. That is the starting rotation. It looks to be right now it is Carlos Rodon, and I'm not listing any particular order. Rodon, Stroman, Will Warren, Max Fried, and Carlos Carrasco, formerly of the Mets and a couple other different teams. How far could this, depending on the time that Schmidt and Heel are out, because we already know Cole's out the entire year, how far and how much impact could this fall in rotation due to injury have on this team in terms of direction, in terms of winning? NFE, I'll start with you.
I mean, not having Cole, is going to hurt. Like, he's not having him in the rotation is going to hurt. At least you are going to get Luis Hill back, but it still stinks that he's going to be out for a few months. Schmidt's going to skip a start, right? He's ramping back up. So you look at the current rotation that you have right now with Rodon, Max Fried, Stroman, Will Warren, Carlos Carrasco. I mean, we know Rodon last season, he pitched well. 16-9 record? Is that what was that his win-loss record from last year? So, he looked good. Yeah, he gives up a lot of home runs, but I think he'll be able to hold it down. But having Max Fried, I think Max Fried, we saw what he could do in his couple of spring training outings. He's looked really good, I think, and I think he's going to be able to hold it down too. Then the question is, Will Warren, what is he going to look like? I know he came up last year. It wasn't exactly the greatest, but he kind of got called up to come and pitch, without any preparation. It was just kind of on an emergency. But, he looked good in some of his outings. Today in today's game, he not so great, right? Last couple of outings, not so great. But, we'll see what we're going to get out of Warren. I think he has potential. But, he's easily number 3, number 4 guy. Carrasco's looked good. Stroman, he's a first half guy. I mean, historically, he's absolutely a first half guy. But hopefully, for his sake, I hope he's able to come through in the second half and prove us wrong, and prove why he shouldn't have never been traded. Which Yankees didn't trade him, which was a good thing. They held on to him because, just in case with injuries. But the rotation is going to be tricky, man. It's going to be tricky to start off, especially with Luis Hill being out. But I think once Hill comes back, I think it'll improve the rotation. I think the rotation will be better. But I think for now, there's a concern for me with this rotation right now. So I think I don't know. What I'm afraid of is that they're going to be too reliant on the bullpen. And when you get too reliant on the bullpen kind of gets worn out, and that could be a disaster. But we gotta wait and see what how these games play out. So 162 games, it's going to be a long season.
Very much so. Dylan, how far can this rotation possibly fall with the injuries it's been decimated by?
Yeah, I really want to touch on Will Warren for a minute because I actually just saw him pitch in person today. And, I obviously watched him pitch last season and stuff like that. I have never been high on Will Warren, and a lot of people have given me crap for that, but I really just don't know why people are so high on him. I understand his stuff looks nice at times, but his fastball isn't exactly the most electric, and his location is still not great. I know he's young, I know he's a rookie, all this stuff. I'm gonna hold it out before I really determine that he's not that good, but right now I don't really see it with him, and I'm concerned that the Yankees are willing to kind of just throw him in the rotation at this point. I understand you have injuries to deal with, and that's why he's in there, but I really am concerned about him being a consistent rotation arm because, he looked good the first 3 or so spring starts, and then the last 2 were rough. Today, for example, the Marlins, they have like a double A lineup out there. Okay, I'm not even trying to like disrespect the Marlins here, but their lineup is terrible on paper. I'm just being honest. Okay, it is really bad. And Will Warren was getting shelled by them. I understand it is a spring training exhibition game. You can't look too deeply into it, but I'm still going to look at it a little bit just because of how close we are to the regular season. This was a game where I was really paying attention to Will Warren a little bit just because like we need to see what he can really give us this year because we're going to be relying on him quite a bit. And I just don't see it with him. I don't. A lot of people have been telling me that he has like ace potential, that he can be really good and all this stuff, but I don't see it with him. I really don't. He has some cool pitches. He's got some good stuff. I like his sinker. He's got a good curveball, all that stuff, but I don't think his mechanics are in the right place right now. I don't think his fastball is lively enough to really be a top of the rotation type of arm. I think people are quickly jumping the gun on him. His minor league numbers historically have not been good, so I don't really understand why people are, just kind of bypassing that. I understand it's minor leagues, and the minor leagues kind of have like, a lot of great hitting and stuff like that, but still, like, I can't just ignore a 6 ERA in the minor leagues and then a 6 ERA in spring training or something like that. I can't just ignore that. I can't ignore those numbers. And even in the major leagues last year, it was rough. So nothing has really told me that this guy is going to be an amazing arm. It really isn't. And, moving on from Warren a little bit, looking at the rest of the rotation, Carlos Rodon, big unknown. Which version of him are we going to get this season? Are we going to get the version that was kind of like what he was when he was in San Francisco and, of course, the White Sox? Or are we going to get the version that we had last year where he was – I apologize for that thunder. The thunder is very loud outside. But anyway, with they hear me talking about Carlos Rodon and they're like, stop. No, but anyway, like I was saying, when it comes to Rodon, are we going to get the version of him that was more like an ace when he was, before the Yankees? Or are we going to get the version that we got last year where he was kind of just like a, average to maybe slightly above average type of pitcher? Not really worth $162 million, though. I think that's important to note. We gave this guy a massive contract to kind of be the number 2 behind Garrett Cole. And I would even argue if Rodon wasn't as bad as he has been the first 2 years as Yankee, we wouldn't have gotten Max Fried because we wouldn't have needed to go get Max Fried. We wouldn't have needed to, give out $218 million to him. I like Max Fried, don't get me wrong. I still think that's a great signing, but I think my point is kind of clear here that we kind of had to go get another lefty arm that was really good because Rodon has disappointed. And now we're going to be relying on Rodon even more now that Cole is out for the year and he'll, of course, missing a few months. Clark Schmidt dealing with his injury. Who knows if – I know he's only missing 1 start, but who knows if that injury is going to flare up again at some point and then he misses more time. There's obviously concerns with that as well. I think the only arm that we can really say right now in the rotation that I'm expecting good results from is Max Fried. I have no reason to believe Max Fried is not going to deliver strong results. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball since 2020. Statistically, I believe he has the best ERA in baseball since 2020. He's also got one of the higher strikeout rates, all that good stuff. He's essentially been one of the best pitchers in the entire league. As long as he doesn't have a Rodon type regression, which, knock on wood that he does not have, he's going to be great for us. He's going to be a frontline ace for the year. He's going to be our Garrett Cole without Garrett Cole, and, we'll look good with him. But with everybody else, Carrasco, Warren, Stroman, Rodon, Schmidt, etc., I really don't know what to expect with those guys. I don't. I gave my 2 cents on Warren because I just really need to kind of get that out a little bit, because a lot of people hype the guy up and I really haven't seen why just yet. I understand he's a rookie and anything could happen. I'm willing to see it out. I'm willing to see how he'll pitch in the regular season. I know spring training and minor leagues can kind of skew numbers a little bit. In the regular season, it could be a whole different thing. I'm willing to see it out with him. But with everybody else, again, it's question marks. I know Schmidt was good last year, but he was injured for 3 months last year. Now he's dealing with another injury. Who knows if injuries are going to mess up his mechanics? Luis Gil missing time, that really hurts because he was really good last year. Stroman, what you said, NFE, first half guy, historically been a first half guy. He's always been great in the first half and then just absolutely horrible in the second half. It has always been that way with him. And I fully expect that trend to continue, unfortunately, because that's something that's happened pretty much every single year of his career. So what that means is that we're going to need Stroman to be very good in the first half, and then hopefully Gil returns in time to where we can kind of, lay back a little bit, or hope that maybe Stroman can come out of the bullpen even at some point if like Will Warren comes out and does really good. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different things that can happen to this rotation, but all in all, if you ask me what I think needs to be done, they need to go get somebody. And I think they should go get someone like Sandy Alcantara. I personally do. I understand the Marlins might ask for an arm and a leg, and if they do ask for too much, then of course I understand if you back away. But I think you need to go get somebody like that. You need to get someone at the front of the rotation that can be a good arm to pair with Max Fried, because I don't think the Yankees have another reliable arm outside of Fried right now in the rotation. I think if you go get somebody like either Alcantara, or even after going after someone like Dylan Cease. I know Dylan Cease is a free agent upcoming, so I know that might be a little more reluctant to do that one, but still, I think my point kind of stands. I think they need to make an addition in the rotation at some point. I was hoping they were going to do it immediately after Garrett Cole's injury, but I know teams are going to be aware of how desperate they are, so there's some negotiating that needs to be done with that, and I'm hoping by like the trade deadline or even earlier in the season that they make a move for pitching. Now, who knows? Maybe the rotation we have right now performs great and that they do amazing, and we won't be having this conversation right now. But either way, I do think they need an addition at some point. I don't think this rotation that they have right now is built for the postseason. And I think that's kind of the big thing. Because when it comes to the playoffs and stuff, you want to have at least like 2 high-quality arms. And I think right now the Yankees only have 1. And that concerns me. It really does. That's what I got to say about the rotation, though.
Luca, your thoughts on the rotation and the injuries is decimated by?
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before this rotation crumbles. Dylan hit the nail on the head with the urgency to get another starter, whether it's Alcantara, as he said, or Dylan Cease, who the Yankees haven't really had interest in. Though the Padres, I thought they were shopping him around like in January or something. I heard rumor, not sure. But I got to agree with Dylan as well. Don't really have a lot of trust in Rodon. For all the money he's making, he has to be that Robin to Cole's Batman. I don't think he's been that. I think we're seeing more of Chicago White Sox Carlos Rodon instead of San Francisco Giants Rodon, which is a bit of a problem. Max Fried is undoubtedly one of the best starting pitchers in baseball, so I don't really have any issues with him there, although he has some minor injury concerns. Rodon has some injury concerns. Luis Gil, obviously, he's injured right now. Is the healing process going to take a little bit more than it usually would? So that's obviously concerned. I give it about 3 months before the Yankees really start to not wave the red flag. I should say, the red flags really come about 2 to 3 months. But I'm hoping, again, that the starting pitching is able to make it until Gil gets back. But again, Carrasco's not reliable. He's way past it. Warren, as Dylan mentioned, there's nothing really that stands out about him, with just a lot of inconsistency. If you want a real prize in the Yankees rotation, or in the organization at the starting pitching, he's hurt, but Chase Hampton. Maybe Chase Hampton's the better guy, but again, he's obviously hurt. So it's questionable. It's very questionable, and there's a lot of concern there. So I'd say about 2 to 3 months for this team to really, for crap to really hit the fan if the Yankees really don't go after a starting pitcher.
Yeah. Moving on to something, and then we'll do predictions to finish out the show. Luca brought it up in the beginning. The Yankees are without a leadoff hitter, and Austin Wells is set to be that. First time ever in Yankees history that they will have a catcher as the leadoff hitter, and it looks like it will be consistent. And then against lefties, it looks like they're going to put Paul Goldschmidt at the top of the order, which I've never heard before. I don't think any other team has done it. So I'm going to start with Luca. What do you think of the way the Yankees have handled the leadoff hitter position? Who else should be in the running? And just your general thoughts.
Well, what I traditionally believe a leadoff hitter is, this is going to sound archaic, this is going to sound this, that, and the third, old school, all that. For a leadoff hitter, in my opinion, can he have a little bit of power? Absolutely. But I need a guy who's a table setter. I need a guy who's going to work the count. I need a guy who's going to draw walks, get base hits on to start those rallies. I think one of the biggest problems with the Yankees over the past couple of years, they have a lot of guys who go station to station. They have a lot of guys who hit solo home runs. It's not 2-run home run, 3-run home run, extra base hits. There's not a lot of traffic on the bases. Jazz Chisholm maybe could be a candidate. I know Austin Wells hit really well in spring training at the leadoff spot. Give him all the credit. Hopefully he succeeds. Anthony Volpe was terrible at the leadoff position last year. He's more of like a bottom of the order type of the guy. Could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure I did my research on that. I don't know who else. I don't know who else besides Wells or Jazz Chisholm. I can't lie to you.
Okay. All right. Dylan, what do you think of Wells leading off, the potential for Paul Goldschmidt to go against those lefties, and just overall the way the Yankees have handled this leadoff position thing?
Yeah, well, it's clear that in the offseason they didn't really know who was going to be the leadoff hitter. They clearly had no clue. I mean, they were kind of toying it around all spring until Austin Wells seemed to really figure it out, the leadoff spot. I kind of feel like the Yankees didn't have a choice but to have him lead off. I mean, he looked great in the leadoff spot. It seemed like the spot of the order that he was the most comfortable in. And when you're dealing with a guy as young as he is and as much of a project that he still is, you want to figure out what works for him and what makes him comfortable. And it seems like hitting leadoff is what he enjoys doing. It seems like that's the spot he felt the most comfortable in. He flexed a lot of power there. He was getting on base and all that stuff. I watched him in person today, of course. He was fighting off good pitches in his at bats. He wasn't whiffing. He was doing all the little good things that you want to see leadoff hitters do. And obviously, I don't know if he's the long-term leadoff guy because it's not like he's someone who's insanely athletic. He's not like, super fast or any of that. He doesn't always hit for average. He's got a lot more power than anything else. But if he's comfortable there and he's giving us good results, then I'm all for him hitting there. I really am. I mean, the Yankees clearly had no clue who was going to lead off. Like I said, we didn't know if it was going to be like Jason Dominguez or Jazz Chisholm, as you guys were saying too. Nobody knew. No one knew, and it doesn't really seem like either of those two guys have been the most comfortable in that spot. So I understand why they're hitting lower in the order. And I think as long as Wells is producing the way he is, if that is a thing because he's hitting leadoff, like if that's something he prefers to do and that's why he's hitting as well as he is, keep him there. I see no reason to take him out of there. I really don't. And as far as Goldschmidt hitting leadoff against lefties, I mean, it is what it is. If he's going to make contact and actually get on base while doing that, then I'll take it because then that means you're just giving more run scoring opportunities for the guys behind him, like Judge and Bellinger, et cetera, et cetera. So I really don't think they had a leadoff guy. They're kind of just going with a leadoff guy by committee or based on matchups here. So whatever it ends up being is what it ends up being. I'm not so concerned about the leadoff spot as I am concerned about just the lineup depth as a whole. I think the lineup depth as a whole is a much bigger concern rather than just like who's leading off. Because I feel like these days, a lot of teams are starting to stray away from your typical leadoff hitter per se. I think teams are kind of just throwing their best players at the top because that means more at bats for them. So whatever happens at the leadoff spot. But in terms of Wells being there, I'm happy for him, honestly. I think he seemed to really figure it out in spring training. I think he deserves to really get a shot at being the leadoff guy because he seemed to do really well there. So we'll see how that goes. That's really all I got to say about it.
And for your thoughts on the Yankees leadoff hitter sweepstakes.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all knew that the Yankees don't have a true leadoff hitter in their lineup. They don't. So, you knew that they were going to experiment when spring training started. Aaron Boone said that, they're going to try it out with Jazz Chisholm and Jason Dominguez. And personally, I was getting some heat for this, but I wasn't comfortable with going with Dominguez at the leadoff spot. Personally, I felt he needed to bat somewhere else in the batting order. If he's going to bat leadoff, I need to see some consistency from him first in order for this guy to lead off. So again, he's going to play in his first full season. Let's see what he's about. Jazz Chisholm, I think would have been ideal, but the problem with Jazz at times, he just kind of swings at balls that are completely out the strike zone. And he swings at balls that are like completely low. He's constantly thinking home run ball too. I mean, I know the guy could hit bombs, absolutely, but this guy needs to get on base and get and create create havoc on the base paths, because the guy is fast. He can steal bases. I'm glad it's working out for Austin Wells. I'm glad he's been consistently hitting well at the leadoff spot. He's looked good. Is it going to stay that way during the regular season? Who knows? Would I be surprised if he gets moved out of that leadoff spot? I honestly wouldn't be. I feel like they might depending on how things go, they might play a little bit of musical chairs. So I know they talked about having Goldschmidt lead off against lefties, which I have no problems with that, because it's like I mentioned earlier, Goldschmidt hits very well against lefties. He hit close to 300 against lefties last season. Something again that the Yankees did not do very well was hit against lefties. So, I have no problems with Goldschmidt leading off against lefties, as long as it's not consistent. But as of right now, I mean, Wells is the guy at this very moment that who should be leading off. I mean, I can't think of another player in the lineup right now that could lead off, right? Jazz is probably your other guy. Again, I was never comfortable with Dominguez. I was never really I was never really high on that personally. They don't have a real leadoff guy, so Austin Wells it is. So let's see what he does. I mean, it's like Dylan said. I mean, it's one position. You got to worry about the entire lineup. You have to see what the entire lineup is going to do. Because if Wells is hitting, everybody else needs to be hitting too. It takes the entire lineup, not just one guy. So you can't just rely on just the leadoff guy. Everybody else, they all need to produce. So as of right now, I'm cool with Wells leading off. He's looked good. Let's see what he does when the season starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Barber says, what position is Ben Rice going to play? He is on the opening day roster, probably backup first base and emergency catcher. I can't imagine he plays any other position.
Well, he's not. He isn't he the DH? No.
I guess he could be the DH.
Yeah,
they'll probably switch off between him and. I mean, they have options there. They could play him at DH or Escara.
right.
I feel like we're gonna see, I want to jump in on that. I feel like we're gonna see a lot of Judge at DH this year. I think Judge is a great fielder, but I feel like we're gonna see him a lot at DH, and they're gonna get Grisham in the field more just for the improved defense. I know Grisham's bat is very on and off. He's kind of a two true outcomes type of player. It's either a strikeout or a home run with him, but I feel like they're going to want to preserve Judge's health a little bit more this season, especially with the mounting injuries that are happening to the roster. And I feel like we're going to be seeing him DHing a lot more. I don't think he'll be, the main DH. No, he's too good of a fielder to keep him out of the field all the time. But I think the more important thing they're going to focus on is his health, especially because I think personally the team is one Aaron Judge injury away from falling apart. So I think we're going to be seeing him DHing a lot. I think Ben Rice could be the main DH, but I think Judge would be someone who's going to get a lot of DH reps. Unless, of course, they go get somebody. Like, if they go get, like, a JD Martinez or someone, that'll obviously be your DH. But for right now, the way the team is currently set up, I think we're going to be seeing, like, Ben Rice and maybe a lot of Aaron Judge at DH, honestly.
It's probably going to be like a revolving door.
Yeah, like, there's not going to be one consistent DH. You're going to be seeing different guys DHing day in and day out. We might even see days where like Goldie is DHing and Ben Rice is at first or something like that even. Who knows? We're going to be seeing whole different types of lineups at some point throughout the year, I feel like.
And can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Go for it.
When it comes to DH, being realistic, do any of you guys think that Giancarlo Stanton even sees the field this season?
No.
No.
Okay, just wanted to make. I'm in the same boat, so I just wanted to get your guys'
I
thoughts
feel
on it.
like if
Thank
you
you.
want me to give a little bit of a quick 2 cents on it, I feel like that
Please.
they're gonna try to get him to rehab it as much as he can, and I feel like at some point he's gonna end up needing surgery for it, which sucks because I really want him to be back out there, but I also don't want him to be not 100% because we've seen what Stanton is like out there when he's not 100%, and it's rough. It is rough. So if
Yeah.
he's not fully there, if his elbows are still bothering him, which again I don't know how he managed to do it to both elbows. I've never really heard of that happening to a baseball player before, but either way, whatever happens with him, I don't really expect him to see the field at all this year. But if he does manage to see the field this year, we're talking like post All-Star break at this point because he didn't play a single game in spring training. Matter of fact, he didn't even swing a bat during all of training camp. So at the very bare minimum, we're not seeing him at least until like late May or June. And that's at best case scenario at this point. I feel
Yeah.
like at this stage right now, we're not seeing him at all. I really don't.
That's what as soon as they said tennis elbows, I'm like, and he went for 3 rounds of PRP injections.
Yes. Yeah.
That is a big concern for me. And on top of that, he had a calf strain, which I mean that's something
And,
that
and
occurs
while
every
the
year.
calf strain part is relatively minor too, it's just the fact that he hasn't really advanced in his baseball activities at all throughout.
Mhm.
I mean, we just went through an entire spring training. We just went through an entire month of spring training and
Right.
really no serious progress from Stanton, which is, to like for me personally, I'm operating right now as if we're not having Stanton this year. I've kind of settled on
Same.
that right now. I think that I know it sounds like very pessimistic, but I don't know how he's going to be able to really ramp himself up and come back without possibly suffering a setback. Because I mean,
Yeah.
this isn't like oh he tweaked something in his hamstrings or something like. No, this is a tennis elbow thing that apparently he was dealing with last year too, and that he just kind of stuck through it during the playoffs. So this is something that's been bothering him for months and months and months and hasn't really gotten better. So I really don't think he's going to be back at any point. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone else here feels differently, but I think me and NFE are on the same page here. We don't expect Stanton to be in the lineup at all this year.
I
And
think
that's
we're all
not
synonymous.
that's not pessimism at all, man. It's just being
We're being
realistic
real.
because
Yeah.
I know I know the Yankees, they're trying to give us hope. And I get it. I understand. I mean, you don't want to be all negative, right? But you want to try and give the fans some sort of hope. I get that, but again, being realistic, this isn't being pessimistic like you said, Dylan. I don't see him playing the field at all. I think he gets surgery and maybe we see him come 2026.
If even that at this
If
point.
even that, yeah. I
'Cause
mean,
who
at
knows
that
what they're
point,
going to end up doing.
yeah. Does
the-
or he might be forced to retire. I mean, God forbid. I mean,
I really hope not, but
you never know. But
we can't predict anything anymore, and we don't know what the Yankees are going to feel about that either. Because I mean,
Yeah,
Cashman even said it last year. The guy's always hurt. It's part of his game. Which Cashman got a lot of flack for that, but it's true. It
he's
is
right.
a true
Yeah.
statement, and Stanton kind of proved that last season because he got hurt jogging to second base. So I mean, I love Stanton as much as anyone else. He gets it done in the playoffs, so I really like the guy. But man, I need him on the field. I need him out there. I'm sick of seeing him get on the IL and be out for a month or two, or right now in this case where he's possibly missing the entire season. I think people forget too, he's already missed pretty much a full season in his Yankees career. 2019, he played 20 regular season games or something like that? He barely played. He didn't really play a lot that year. I think people are forgetting that. He's already had these problems in the past, and it's only gotten worse. So that's really what I got to say about that. I love Stanton to the core, but he's just never available. And the best ability is always availability.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. And one question I have before we go into predictions and stuff like that is you guys were bringing up good points about Stanton and all that. There's the quintessential question that a lot of people ask themselves about this team and the way they've handled their operations over the last few years. Do you think the Yankees wasted the prime of Garrett Cole and Giancarlo Stanton?
That is a tough one, but
Yeah.
I'll start it off first. I don't know if I want to say wasted, only because I mean they've made the playoffs almost every year. They made the World Series. I feel like if it was a waste, it would be like if they were just not a playoff team. I think that would be more of a waste. But in the same time, I kind of understand where this person's coming from because, when you have Aaron Judge in his prime right now, Garrett Cole at the top of his game, Giancarlo Stanton still being around, around the top of his game. I know he hasn't been the same MVP level player as a Yankee, but he's still been an all-star level player. When you have that, you want to really have better results in the playoffs. You want to be, you want to possibly have a ring by now, right? You think you should have a ring, especially considering you've been in the postseason every year except one time since 2018. You want to be you want to have that right now, but you don't have a ring right now, and it kind of sucks. It feels like you've taken a step back this year as well after losing Juan Soto in free agency and all that stuff after making the World Series. But to say that it's been a waste, I don't know if I can fully say it's a waste, just because I feel like we've still gotten good careers out of them. I feel like we've still gotten strong production. I mean, Garrett Cole won a Cy Young Award. Stanton's made the All-Star team once or twice as a Yankee, and he's still obviously been pretty good for the most part in his Yankee career. So I don't know if it's been exactly a waste, because they've made the most of it. They've gotten to the playoffs and stuff. They haven't gotten their ultimate goal, so it's not. I understand if you think it's a waste because of that. It does make sense. I see it. I hear you out, but I think if it was more of a waste, I think a waste would be better defined if it was like, I'm trying to think of like an actual example that's happened in Major League Baseball where, players have been very good and they've been on, like, I think like someone almost like Mike Trout, even, you could argue it.
I would say Ichiro.
Even Ichiro, guys like Mike Trout and Ichiro, guys that have been on, not good teams. Ichiro, of course, is in the Hall of Fame now and stuff like that. But like Mike Trout, a guy who's been on the Angels his entire career and he only has one playoff series to his belt. I think that's a bit of a waste right there, because Mike Trout, we know, is, en route to being in the Hall of Fame and stuff like that. He's one of the best players to ever play. Obviously, he needs to stay healthy and stuff like that. But I think everyone gets my point here. One of the best players that we've ever seen in this generation grace the game. But he's never been in the playoffs essentially at all. I think that's more of like a waste right there when you look at guys like that. Guys that are generational talents but are never seeing the playoffs at all, and they're never really coming any close to any serious success. The Yankees are in the playoffs every year, and they were just in the World Series. So they are, they're on the precipice a little bit. I don't think they're quite there, but they're closer than these other players that we just named, these other examples that me and Luca just gave. So I think all in all, to say it's a waste, I think it's a little bit of a stretch, just a little bit. But I mean, I want to let the other guys get in on that because, I've been talking a lot and I want to get the other guys in on it.
No, you're good, man. I value people's thoughts and opinions. So by all means, man. But my take, honestly, I wouldn't call it a waste. I'm right there with Dylan, because he mentioned Mike Trout. Hell, I'll even mention Shohei Ohtani. When you think about it, he spent all those years with the Angels. They did absolutely nothing to build a team around those two guys, right? It wasn't until Ohtani went to the Dodgers, then they built a team around him. It revolved around him. And Trout, he's another one. What about another player I'll mention? I mean, granted, they make it to the playoffs, but he hasn't seen a championship. Bryce Harper, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like his years have been truly wasted with Washington, and right now with the Phillies. I'm not saying the Phillies are a bad team, but I feel like the Phillies are, could be better than what they are. So, they make it. The Yankees make it to the postseason one way or another. I mean, year in, year out, they make it to the postseason. Yeah, there's been a few years where they didn't make it. They were given opportunities. They were given ample opportunities. They just couldn't execute, unfortunately. So, is the window winding down now for guys like Giancarlo and Judge and Garrett Cole? Yeah, it's winding down. I mean, they're getting a little bit older. I mean, again, we talked about Stanton. We don't know what his future looks like. Who knows? Cole, I think personally, I think he'll be back, and I think he'll be fine. But I know it's going to be a long healing process. Judge, we already know what Judge is capable of, but the organization has to know, man. It's the window's closing for these guys. I wouldn't say wasted, right? I'm right there with Dylan. I wouldn't say wasted. They have opportunities. They've had ample opportunities. They just need to execute on those opportunities.
Okay, Luca, your thoughts.
I'll say that, I'll create a quick differentiation or distinguishment real quick. I would say it's been wasted thus far. It hasn't been a total waste because it's not like Stan's retiring tomorrow. It's not like Garrett Cole's retiring tomorrow. I think a lot of Yankee fans, and this is also one of my biggest issues, and maybe a little bit of potential fear. Stan went all out last year for that World Series run, and one of the things that he mentioned was he was playing with bad elbows in that World Series in that postseason. It's like I don't want it to be like Stan gave it his last all to retire without a World Series ring and actually get nothing from that. Now, you trade for Giancarlo Stanton in 2018. You signed Garrett Cole in 2019 to eventually win a World Series. Can the Yankees win a World Series? Absolutely, they can. I think it's been a bit of a failure this far because I don't think the Yankees have maximized this window. Yes, they've been in the playoffs every year, but I think we won at least one championship by now. That's just my personal opinion. My expectations might be a little bit higher, but I definitely get you guys' point. The window isn't over. It's shutting, but it's not over.
All right. All right. So let's sink into predictions to close out the show. First one is who will surprise and who will disappoint if you had a player each, or if you want to go with one section, who will surprise or disappoint. I will start with NFE and then I'll make my way around the table.
Oh man, who will surprise? I know I kind of criticized him earlier, but I'm gonna say I think Volpe's gonna surprise us. I'll say Volpe will surprise us. I really want this guy to play well. Like I do. Like I know I criticized him earlier, but it's not because I dislike him. I know I've had some folks ask, like, why do you want him off the team? It's not that I want him off the team. I want the guy to play well. Like that's what I want for him. I want him to perform well, but he just hasn't. But I hope he surprises me. I want him to surprise me. That's my guy. Disappointment, man. There's a lot of names. The biggest disappointment, honestly. I mean, it's easy for me. It's easy to say, Dominguez. The reason why is because, again, there's a lot of hype about this guy, and unfortunately, if he doesn't live up to that expectation, that hype that people are giving him, he could be that disappointment. I mean, out of the guys in the lineup, I know I have expectations of those guys, and I know what to expect from them. But those, again, I'm going back to those two guys right there. I think Volpe needs to, I think he could surprise us, but I think Dominguez being a disappointment. You know what? I'm going to take that back because he's a rookie. So I did say manage expectations, but the disappointment for me, honestly, would be. You know what? I'm gonna say Max Fried would be a big disappointment. Why am I saying that? So I think he's gonna have a great year, but if for some reason things go south with him, I'm not saying it will. That would disappoint me. Why? Because the Yankees gave him a freaking bunch of money for a lot of years. That's where I'm going with this. I think he's going to do well, but if he didn't, that would be a big disappointment for me because he was a big acquisition this offseason.
All right, Dylan.
Yeah, your Max Fried take is a spicy one. I'll tell you that. That is a. But hey, you know what? That's what we're here for. I like that.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. But if you want me to say someone who, I'll start with the disappointment since we're on that topic. Someone that I think is going to end up disappointing me, I'm going to say Jazz Chisholm. And the reason I say Jazz Chisholm is because, I think he's a great player. And I was having this conversation with some of my buddies the other day, but I think Jazz Chisholm is a great player. I think, he has the tools to be a really good player. I even went as far to say he has the tools to even be close to a 5-tool player because he does. He's athletic. He's got power. He can hit, all that stuff. But I feel like that the discipline and the IQ isn't quite there with him. He strikes out a lot. He does a lot of low IQ things. Obviously he's not the best defender, all this stuff. I feel like really, I think a lot of fans are kind of overrating him a little bit. I've always thought Jazz Chisholm's a little bit of an overrated player just in general. I thought that way when he was on the Marlins. I still feel that way now. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's like this superstar that people make him out to be. And I think a lot of fans are going to be disappointed when Jazz Chisholm finishes the year with, like, say, a 248 batting average and 23 home runs, which me personally, I will be okay with. But I feel like some other fans are going to be like, oh, I want him to hit 30, this, that. And I want him to hit 30. I think really considering just the way that people prize Jazz Chisholm and the way that people talk of him and stuff, you would think this guy is like a 280 hitter, 35 home run type of guy, 30 stolen bases, 40 stolen bases, you name it. You would think that. And I know he has the capability to do something like that. I know he's been an all-star in his career. But there's another thing I want to mention. The guy has only been healthy one season in his career, and that was last year. That was the first time he had even played over 100 games outside of, or second time he had played over 100 games, in his career. The other times he had missed a lot of time to injuries and stuff like that. I feel like if he ends up getting hurt this year and missing a lot of time, and the team ends up, sliding because he's out of the lineup and stuff, they're going to be disappointed that he's not in the lineup either. You know what I mean? I feel like we're going to be a little disappointed in his play overall, but I think if he misses any time this year, obviously I can't predict an injury. I'm just speculating here, but let's say he were to get hurt and miss time, that's going to be disappointing because we traded for him to be an impactful bat in the lineup, and then he's kind of just like there a little bit when he's active, and then he's not, and then if he gets hurt, then he's not there. You know what I mean? I feel like people are going to be a little disappointed when he doesn't have an all-star season, when he's not hitting like 40 home runs and all this stuff, because I know a lot of Yankee fans want to see him succeed. I want to see him succeed as much as the next guy. I think he could do very good at Yankee Stadium too with the lefty power he's got, but I don't think the discipline and IQ is quite there. I feel like he's more of just like a vibes guy and things like that, and I think we're going to be a little disappointed with him. But moving on to a guy that can surprise me, I think it's going to be Austin Wells a little bit here. And the reason I go Austin Wells, I know he had really good spring training and stuff, so people might say, oh, it might not be surprising if he has a good year. I will be surprised, though, because this is only the second full season for Austin Wells coming up right here. It's only the second full season. And if he has a very good season where, he's giving us great production at the leadoff spot, which is something that no one really expected him to be at entering training camp. And if he gives us, a season with a lot of power, less strikeouts, more quality of contact, all those good things, and of course the defense continuing to improve year in and year out, I think he's going to have a great year. I'm kind of looking forward to him. Guys like him and Ben Rice are the two guys that I'm looking forward to the most this season, ironically enough. I feel like those two guys showed me quite a bit in spring training that makes me a little excited for this upcoming season. It does. I don't think, of course, that they're finished products by any means, and of course they can easily end up falling flat on their face again, but I kind of, saw a lot of different changes that both of those guys made in their games during spring training and stuff that makes me encouraged a little bit. Guys like, and it goes back to guys like Chisholm, because like Chisholm, I know he's young as well. I know he's only entering, I think, year 5 or year 6, but still, either way, I feel like we know what Jazz Chisholm is at this point. He hasn't really taken that next step in his career. The player he has been for most of his career is the player that he kind of was last season, if we're being honest here. Guys like Wells and Rice, though, I feel like we could see big leaps coming up this year, especially if they're given the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. I think they can be the most surprising pieces this year, and Jazz Chisholm my most disappointing. That's kind of where I got it on that. So,
Luca?
I also got to add it about Jazz Chisholm. I don't like his mouth. I think that dude ran his mouth too much during the playoffs. He said that the Yankees were going to win the World Series when they were in the ALCS, and they didn't, but that's besides the point. If I have to make a prediction on disappointment, I'm going to reluctantly go Anthony Volpe. I'm hoping I'm wrong, just putting it out there. He's going to be my disappointment, but for a surprise, I don't want to, I have two options in my mind. I'll either go Clayton Beeter, but we didn't see much of Beeter last year, and he's obviously was a starting pitching prospect for the Yankees, more likely in the bullpen. You know what? I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to go Clayton Beeter. Maybe Will Warren struggles enough where Clayton Beeter gets inserted to the rotation, just an out-of-the-box theory, and it really surprises. I'm just going to be the stunner here. If he gets option to AAA, I will gladly be wrong.
All right. How many wins are the Yankees getting this year? Luke, I'll start with you.
They're not. First of all, I'll say this for the record. I don't think they'll be that bad this year. The Red Sox will definitely challenge him with the Orioles a little bit as well, although Dylan made a great point and said that the Orioles really kind of disappointed because they didn't really spend. They're going to be I think it's going to be like 94 wins, something like that.
Okay. All right. Dylan?
I'll go quick with this too. I think their floor, I'll go with their floor and ceiling. That's how I'll do this, okay? Their floor, I think, is like an 84, 85 win team. And the reason I put that as a floor is because if Aaron Judge goes down at any point in the season, it's 2023 all over again. It is. Okay, you're going to be relying on guys that really you shouldn't be relying on as top options, and things could go south quickly. And same thing with the starting rotation concerns that we've laid out all of this episode. Anything could go wrong. I think that is like their floor. You're looking at an 84, 85 win team if everything goes wrong. Now for ceiling, if everything goes right and Aaron Judge stays healthy and the guys that we got this offseason perform well, you're looking at like a 94, 95 win team. You really are. You're looking at a team that can compete for the American League East division title once again, even win the AL East. You're even looking at a team that could possibly be the top seed in the American League with how, with the way they play. I mean, you kind of really can't predict exactly where they're going to fall because there's just too many unknowns about this team right now. So that's why I give it a floor and a ceiling, because there's two different types of outcomes that are realistic this year. One big injury that happens again can derail the season. Meanwhile, if everyone stays healthy and the guys we have now perform well, everything can go right and it can look like 2019 where guys had gone down, but the guys that were here persevered and gave us a winning season. So I think really you have two different outcomes there, and that's kind of the prediction I'll give. You have either an 84, 85 win year or a 94 and 95 win year. Something like that.
Right? NFE.
Yeah, I'll keep this short and sweet. Prior to the injuries, prior to the issues, I was saying 96. But I'm only going down. I'm right there. I'm right there with Luca. Like after all those injuries and the issues, I still think this team will be fine. And yes, there are question marks. I mean, Dylan's not wrong about that. But I'm going to give this team 94. I literally, after the injuries, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this team 94 wins.
Okay. I'm going to take 90, actually. Play it conservatively, of course. Where are they going to place in the division? NFE, I'll start with you.
I truly believe they could still place in first. I really do. I said the same thing last year, too. I know baseball. A lot of baseball folks were saying that they were going to finish second last year to the Orioles. I didn't feel that way, and I still feel as though they could still finish first place in the AL East.
Okay. Dylan?
Yeah, just like I had said a moment ago, I think they can win the American League East. I do. I feel like right now you could argue that they're still the best team in that division. Boston made great moves in the offseason. Credit to them. They added Garrett Crochet, Walker Buehler, and Alex Bregman. And they, of course, have some exciting young players like Willie Abreu, Jaron Duran. And they still have Rafael Devers on that team as well. So they have a very good squad themselves. And they can give the Yankees a run for their money this time around. But I do think the Yankees overall are just they have more talent. They have more star power. I think that the Yankees are going to still end up winning the division. But again, if everything goes south like I had laid out before and they hit their floor, we're looking at a wild card team at best. We really can. There's two different types of seasons that this Yankees team can have. I don't even mean to be so pessimistic, but it is really true. This isn't like last year where you got Juan Soto in the offseason and it's like, okay, this is probably the American League favorite, and they ended up being the AL favorite pretty much all season long. This season, anything can happen, really, because you're depending on guys that you really don't know what they're going to give you. So to keep it short and simple, I think personally that they will end up winning the American League East, but I can also see a scenario where they end up in the wild card. So really anything can happen, but I do expect them to reach the postseason. That I am very firm on. I expect them to make the playoffs, and if they don't make the playoffs, massive disappointment. Massive.
Luca?
It's funny because I was just looking at like the roster for the Red Sox and the Orioles. I just want to say real quick, the Orioles struggle with pitching, and I think Grayson Rodriguez just went down with injury. They have better hitters. The Red Sox have better pitchers. I think the Yankees win the division like everybody else, as NFP and Dylan thinks on here. I think they win the division, but I think the Red Sox give them a run for their money a little bit.
Okay. All right. I still think they're going to finish first, but we'll see. How far do the Yankees go this season? Let's start with Luca.
Honestly, here's the problem. There's not a lot of. I mean, the Red Sox got better, obviously. The Royals made some nice signings, but how good are they? They're still like maybe a year or two away from being a World Series contender, I would say. Astros, they just lost Bregman, so we don't know what the Astros are. They got a nice farm system, but they did sign Christian Walker though, so that's a plus. There's not a lot of because the way I feel, it's going to sound complicated. I feel like the Yankees could be upset in like a divisional series. They could lose in like 5 games or something like that. But I don't think the product of these teams coming out of and I almost said the AFC, the American League, are that great. It could be a similar situation to last year. If the Yankees were in the National League, it'd be a completely different story. But I'm going to say division series.
Okay, Dylan.
So where I think they're going to finish in the playoffs, I'm pretty firm on this part right here. I don't think they're making the World Series again. I do not. And the reason I say that, even though I had been saying that they can be the best team in the American League, I don't think this team is built for the postseason. And the main reason I say that they're not built for the postseason is because their superstar does not get it done in the playoffs, Aaron Judge. Every time he's been in the playoffs, he doesn't get it done. And he's a big reason. I apologize for that alarm, by the way. But like I was saying, with Aaron Judge, he doesn't get it done in the playoffs. He hasn't been good in the playoffs throughout his career. And last year, you could argue he is the biggest reason why they did not win the World Series. Because if you look at the numbers side by side with them and the Dodgers last year, they were right there with them. You know, they weren't good, but they were right there with them. The Dodgers just did the little things that ended up beating the Yankees in the long run. And when by little things, I mean they shut down their superstar and they beat them with some small ball and big IQ and some clutch moments as well. You know, when it comes to the Yankees right here with the way this team is designed, when you don't have Stanton and Soto, the two guys that performed the best in the playoffs last year, I really can't expect them to just replicate that playoff success with this new group this year. I really don't see that happening. So in terms of where I think they're going to finish, at best they'll finish in the ALCS. But what Luca said, I could easily see them going out in the first round in the division series. I could easily see them going out in 4 or 5 games in the ALDS very easily even to a team like, whether it's like the Orioles or the Red Sox or the Guardians, any one of those teams can end up figuring out the Yankees pretty quickly and taking care of them pretty handily. I mean, we saw last year in the NLDS, the Mets taking care of the Phillies, which I don't think a lot of people initially thought was going to happen. So anything can happen in the playoffs. And while I do think the Yankees can possibly make it back to the World Series, I'm pretty firm that they're not going to get back there, which is obviously not good because it's a step backward from where you were last year. But at the end of the day, anything can happen. And if you're the Yankees and you know that this team might not be as good right now to make the World Series, you need to do the right things and make the corresponding moves and try to go all in at the deadline or something like that to really get this team to where you want it to be. Because right now, the way it's designed, I don't know if they're making it there. I don't. So I'm pretty set on that.
NFE.
Yeah, again, prior to the injuries, I would have said World Series. But if I'm being realistic, the way things are playing, the way I think things might play out, I think they'll make it as far as the ALCS. And I could see them potentially getting eliminated in the ALCS. But when you think about it, though, really the American League, it's not that strong. I'm not saying that the teams are weak. The National League is actually has a stronger team, especially with the Dodgers. So there's going to be teams that are going to give they're going to give the Yankees a hard time. There's no doubt. I mean, the AL East, all those teams, no matter how bad or how good they are, they always give the Yankees a hard time. It's just the way it is. There's a couple of teams, the AL Central, that I'm definitely keeping my eye out. Tigers, Royals. The AL West. I mean, I don't know about the Astros. I know you brought up Christian Walker, but he's hurt, so I don't think he's. I think he's on the IL if I'm not mistaken. But honestly, if I'm being realistic right now with the squad that they have, and if they, I mean, who knows what they do at the trade deadline, right? Because we'll see if they make any moves there. But ALCS is probably where I'll place them, and I hope I'm wrong.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna say division series, by the way.
Okay.
That's gonna wrap it up for tonight's show. About an hour and a half ish, previewing the Yankees 2025 season. Hopefully I'm wrong in what they do and they actually surprise me a little bit. With that said, I'm gonna throw it around for final thoughts. I'll start with Luca, then Dylan, then NFE to close out.
Once again, thank you to the chat. Thank you to Dylan and NFE for coming on. But I will say, in conclusion, as I say always, I've been a bit pessimistic on this team for the last few years for a multitude of reasons. But I will always say this team is my number one, and I hope they prove me wrong.
Okay, Dylan.
Yeah, final thoughts. I mean, I don't have much else to say other than what I've said most of this stream. Just, I'm excited baseball's back. I am excited for this season. I know I've said a lot of negative things on this stream, but I am actually excited for this year. I do think that they're going to, have some good moments. There's going to be moments where we question this team. There's going to be moments where we say this team's going to be super good and they can go all the way. That's part of a long season. I'm happy for it. I'm ready for it. I think we're going to enjoy this year, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I hope that the guys that we currently have stay healthy. I know we're already dealing with injuries, so let's stop the injuries at where we're at right now, please. I no more injuries, and, let's just hope for a good season. That's really all I can say at this point.
NFE.
Yeah, first off, great being on here with all you guys. So first time with all of you. First time meeting Dylan. So awesome. You got some great takes, man. Appreciate it. Luca, Alex, great stuff, guys. But you know what, man? Baseball season's here. Let's enjoy it. This is like, for some of us, this is like our favorite time of the year. Let's enjoy it. Let's hope the Yankees have a good season. Let's just enjoy baseball, right? We've been, for some of us, the off season can get pretty boring, especially when when you're reading a bunch of fake news. But let's just hope for the let's just hope for the best, and prepare for the worst. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to this season. I'm looking forward to the Yankees still, even with all the what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of the word right now, but all the problems that they're experiencing, the adversity that they need to overcome. That's the word, the adversity that they need to overcome. I'm looking forward to all of it. You know what I mean? So I'm just glad that baseball season's here. I'm happy about it, and I'm looking forward to the season, the 2025 season. So let's go.
All right. Make sure you sub up to NFE. You follow NFE on Twitter and you follow Dylan on Twitter. Dylan also does some stuff with the Fireside channels, the Knicks. I know he does a lot of work there. Appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when live stream pops through drops. Appreciate y'all. We'll be live on Thursday. It was pretty interesting, actually, because today was big news in Giant Land, but we're doing a Yankee stream, and it'll be big news in Yankee Land on Thursday, and then we'll be doing a Giant stream because we have to talk about the QB situation. But
the Knicks won too, so don't forget about that.
The Knicks. Yeah,
Yes.
Can't forget about those New York Knicks. But
Don't forget about that.
we appreciate you guys so much, and we'll talk to you later.